Chandran Nair, the founder and CEO of the Global Institute for Tomorrow, discusses Malaysia, asking whether our politicians have matured in this era of Malaysia Baru and whether her policymakers have really thought through the meaning of long-term and sustainable development. So you've named China as a potential government that is, obviously one of your beliefs is that you believe in a strong state in order to drive through change, right?
Yes.
Other than China though, and let's talk about Malaysia, Malaysia Baru, we've got the opportunity now to rethink a lot of things, but we are still believing headlong in the Western notions of development and growth. GDP, for example, oil revenues for another, right? In your work at GIFT, do you talk to policymakers? What are they saying? How are they responding to your points of view?
Well, let's be very clear. The stuff that I'm talking about is understood by many people, but they do not want to make it part of the political narrative. So,
because it's not popular?
Well, because in particular in democracies, politicians need short-term wins to essentially retain power. I think when I talk about this in China, it's profoundly understood. Because the Chinese are looking 20, 30 years. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that China doesn't have a struggle in containing, in trying to manage the need to sustain its growth, etc. But as I said, the state has tools to manage that and do certain things. So coming back to Malaysia, I think we have a fantastic opportunity to redefine what I call these notions of prosperity, rights, freedoms, etc. I do think, and with all due respects, was our new breed of politicians, those in power, are essentially attacking the issue of ingrained corruption. I've been speaking in Malaysia for 3-4 years recently on corruption, etc. And it's very interesting. Most Malaysians only think of corruption from the point of 1 NDB, but essentially the erosion of values has brought us here, and it's endemic throughout the country. And I would suggest that it's endemic within the middle class, etc. So we have to really start thinking about how do we redefine. Now, in terms of the consumption issue, etc., of course, Malaysia is a small country relatively. But we are a very lucky one, small country, huge amounts of resources. So you can plunder and rape and pillage in this country and it still doesn't go down, if I can put it that way. Malaysia doesn't have earthquakes, tsunamis, typhoons like the Philippines, Indonesia. So we're a lucky lot. We got damn complacent. And then rent seeking, which is the economic rent seeking of elites has become part and parcel of the way we live.
Chandran, the thing is, it's part of the fabric in Malaysia now.
Yes.
For you to upheave this, and sitting as you do in Hong Kong, where you're based, it's almost a utopic outcome.
It's not a utopic outcome because if as the current Prime Minister is talking about changing things, my article in Malaysia.
You use the word if. Do you not believe that he won?
Well, if only in the sense that, of course, actions will, and I'm not saying he's not committed to, but you can't, and as he has admitted, you can't overthrow and turn over something so endemic in a short term.
And yet he wants a second car. He wants a third national car.
Yeah, I understand that the Prime Minister is still hooked on growth through essentially GDP results, and that too will take. And I'm sure he's open to hopefully to thinking about different ideas. In fact, I submitted to the Institutional Reform Committee. I think they invited proposals. I submitted a proposal. I haven't heard back, but I'm hoping that they will listen. But I do think our politicians today are still, whilst one should applaud what they have done to kind of restore some sense of sensibilities to the way we are governed, are still rooted to the idea of all economic theories of growth through essentially resource extensive and growth and externalization of costs.
Okay,
my view is, how can we change that? And we have an office in KL, by the way, to try and promote these ideas.
Okay, last question. I think you're on record as saying that you haven't taken outside investment because of fear that you might lose your independence, and I think quite rightly so. The problem is then you've got to take on revenue-generating jobs. For example, your executive leadership training programs. Does that not distract you from the larger issue at hand?
No, not at all. Firstly, intellectual dishonesty, in my view, is the currency of our times. If you look at the largest...
Currency or miscurrency?
well, you can say miscurrency too, but it is the intellectual, it's the currency of our times. Intellectual dishonesty permeates all the global think tanks. You know, all the so-called leading Western institutions, the institutions are intellectually dishonest because they're funded by vested interests. Whether they're Chatham House or Brookings Institute, they're all funded. They have an agenda. I felt that we wanted to be intellectually straight to the point, and I didn't want funding. I say some radical things, and if I take Coca-Cola, money from Coca-Cola, I can't say that fast food kills you. So our business model is rather unique. We're probably the only think tank in the world that doesn't take funding.
And it's profit generating.
And it's profit generating purely to continue to perpetuate ideas. Now, it's not a distraction, because my view is if you want to get your ideas out there, the public is okay, but you've got to get into the largest economic entities in the world, and these are companies. And so that's what we do.
You do a lot of talks for the Khazanah Megatrends Forum.
I did one talk, and I've attended about 2 or 3.
Correct. So how receptive do you think, or otherwise, the audience was?
The audience is very receptive. I'll tell you in the few minutes, 1 minute we have, that I was invited 2-3 years ago and to talk about inclusive growth. And
they might have been invested in the conversation, but what did they do after they left the room? Did they change anything within their own organization?
That's the problem of Malaysia. People are fearful of doing anything to change anything. That's why we are where we are at. So I argue that we can't have inclusive growth in Malaysia. We are all collectively racist. And you could hear a pin drop in the room. And then numerous Tan Sris and Datins and all came up to me and said, "My God, you said the most honest thing." And but I was assured they would not do anything.
And yet they never changed anything
by
themselves.
They have vested interest in it. But having created the environment we have, I am hopeful we can talk about those things. Meritocracy, race-based politics, helping the poor, changing our economic model, and definitely looking at how Malaysia positions itself in Southeast Asia as a powerhouse. We have all those abilities. I mean, we are the most diverse in the region. We have the greatest religions in the world. But we continue to have small talk, petty discussions, and I'm hoping the current government will broaden that discussion.